Have you ever wondered what would your life be like if you imagined it to be different? What would your life be like if you imagined it to be a bit better, a bit healthier, a bit slimmer, bigger, better, healthier, richer? What would your life be like if you imagined it that you had more to give, more to contribute, more to experience, more to offer, that you were smarter and better than you could have ever imagined before? Well, your life would be quite different. Why is that? Because imagination is the master tool when it comes to creating our personal reality. What do I mean by that? Well, the primary cause of our experiences in life is not because of some random things that are happening outside of us, but it's because of the inner working of our mind. Our thoughts, our emotions, our mental and emotional processes creates our next future moments and experiences, and also determine how we're going to react and respond to life and what's happening around us. But if we look at life and if we look at our imagination, everything around us started in somebody's imagination. And there are so many countless examples, famous and things that happen every single day around us to prove this point. Whether it's the famous Roger Bannister 4-minute mile story, where nobody thought it was humanly possible to run a mile in less than a minute. And then he did it, and then it was possible for so many other people within weeks. And all the other placebo effects that research has shown, people who accept and imagine that one pill will make them better, and they do get better. And the nocebo effect, people that think that one condition or one thing will make them sick, and they become sick. And in some cases, they even die because of misdiagnosis, which is quite sad. So imagination is extremely powerful. But too often we don't really notice that we are imagining things. We think it's normal, it's who we are, it's how it is, it's our normal state of consciousness. We are so identified with what we create in our mind and the stories we create in our mind and the stories that society creates and created for such a long time that it's very difficult for us to imagine it, meaning to think outside the box and to imagine things could be different for us. Because sometimes we feel like, you know what, a person who has too much imagination could either be delusional, right, because they are a dreamer and they think too much and they're crazy, right? Or they could be like, oh my God, they are such a brilliant mind and such a vivid imagination and they're so creative. So imagination can go into those two poles, and sometimes we just don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But I'm here to tell you that it's one of the most powerful tools that you have to master and discipline in your mind, because it always goes on all around us and between us without us even noticing most of the time, because it's a subconscious process. If you look at culture, our social dynamic, our history, our traditions, they come from what? From stories, from our his story. And too often, we have very little proof of whatever happened back then. All we have is some recollections, somebody's book, somebody's report, or somebody's edition of that report, or somebody's translation of that story. And we think, we assume, we believe, we imagine that this is actually how it happens, that it's true and legit. And our whole society gets constructed on those narratives that are often, and if we look at just the last couple of years and the last couple of decades, all the things that we thought were real and tangible and real and were actually proven to be complete bullshit and wrong. But we imagined it, and the narrative created it and made it feel so real. And this not only happens on a society level, but also at an individual level. How often do you share your story with other people? Notice how you introduce yourself to other people. Notice that you always use the same way to describe yourself, to tell yourself about how you grew up, where you grew up, your story, your history, who you know, how you are. And this is reflected in the person you are, in your self-image, the way you carry yourself to the world, the way you interact, the way you do things, the way you avoid doing certain things. Because we want to remain consistent with what we imagine is true for us. But the phenomenal creative power that we all have is that we are not stuck in this one particular program, in this one particular box. We have this power to imagine what would life be outside the box, outside the possible, this is all we can do type of things. And that's why our society is so flourishing, evolving, constantly growing, and coming up with the next thing. But we are on an individual level also able to come out with the next thing if we're able to imagine ourselves to be that next thing. Meaning allowing ourselves to tell a different story. Instead of telling the blame and the victim story, we can choose to rewrite that story, to rewrite who we are, to change the way we tell our story, to change the way we introduce ourselves, to change the way we talk to ourselves. And if we do that and we believe in it and we do it, with repetition, we become that person. And the good thing is that sometimes we feel, well, but it's not true because I remember my past, my memories. But science has shown us that every time we revisit a memory, we change it slightly. So even though we think our past is tangible and real, it's actually more unreliable than you think. Because the way you remember your past has been so distorted. And every time you revisit it, tell it, or remember it, you change it slightly. So what you think happened probably happened in a very different way. So this is to tell you that the power that we have to create our life and our story only depends on what we imagine it to be. But it's a choice. We can choose to live based on the record of the past because we think this is what is true and set in stone. Or we can choose to set something new in stone because we are not only the architect of our life, but we're also the molder, but we're also the thing that we mold. And we have this incredible power to do all those things at the same time because of our true nature, which is consciousness. And consciousness is always objectifying itself, meaning whatever you identify yourself with, you become. And that's why all those pro and con artists out there are thriving. Because even though they have nothing to show and their story is completely fake, they believe in it and they live it. And other people are buying it. And this is not only for cons artists, but this is the story of everybody. Because everybody is buying the story that you bought about yourself. So what would your life be like if you started to see yourself as being greater than you ever imagined? And if you started to tell that story, and if you started to live that story? Well, I invite you to find out. And if you need more resources on how you can do that and how you can exercise and discipline your imagination, go to this channel. There's plenty of resources. I will see you there. Be well. And as always, feel free to like, subscribe, and share this video. See you next time. Be well.